because all those curls create more surface area for oil to glom onto during the frying process. If you have a bigger role in the company right now, but you're seeing no change in your compensation, our career coach says you should be asking for a raise. Did you know that people with children are half as likely to get a cold as people who don't have kids?
Intelligence for your life on the John Tesh Radio Show. Don't miss this stuff.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 5 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. I haven't worked at an assisted living facility in 15 years. 15 years ago, I worked for 3 years at an assisted living facility. I took a break from working in radio and did something different, and then I came back to radio after that. But those 3 years taught me so much. I learned some of the best dirty jokes from the ladies who lived in the assisted living facility. One of the ladies who lived there had been a nurse earlier in her life, and she had all kinds of accomplishments, all kind of accolades, all kind of success stories from when she was in her life. And the assisted living facility was broken up into two categories: the non-locked area and the locked area. The locked area was for people with dementia types of diseases, Alzheimer's being one of them. And she, this lady did not live in the Alzheimer's section, and she would always tell me these dirty jokes. They were dirty cute, you know. They weren't dirty disgusting. They were dirty cute, you know. So anyway, she started disappearing to dementia. She started fading, and so eventually she was moved to the locked area. And I would go back and visit her, and, you know, the dirty jokes stopped, and she started becoming a different person. And one time I was walking past, and I heard a high-pitched shrill, and I walked in there, and it was her. And she had her right arm straight up in the air. She was confined to a wheelchair at this point. Her right arm was straight up in the air, and she was screaming at the high-pitched shrill in her voice, and just like one constant note. And I said, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" And the girls who work that area, they said, "Larry, there's nothing you can do. We can't get her to stop." Well, I knew she liked dirty jokes, and I got down on my knee and I said to her, I don't want to use her first name, but I used her first name, and I said, "I got a good joke to tell you." When she heard me say, "I have a good joke to tell you," she put her arm down, she stopped screaming, she listened to the joke, and she laughed. And the girl said, how did you stop her? I said, "I don't know. I just told her a joke. In fact, it might even be a joke she told me a long time ago. I can't remember." You know, but it didn't last. And then she eventually went back to putting her arm up in the air and screaming. And it was so sad to see this, but it told me something. It told me that if you can stimulate something in the mind of a person with dementia, maybe there's a key there to, like, if I was to live with her all the time, maybe I'd be all the time saying this and showing pictures of that and whatever, just to stimulate her. So that was a theory. I mean, I was an activities director. I wasn't a medical expert in anything. Deborah Shouse, however, has looked at this really closely. Deborah is on the phone. She's a writer, a speaker, an editor. She's a creativity catalyst. I can't wait to learn what she has discovered. She's a dementia advocate, a journalist, did I say that already? A contributor to the Washington Post, the Christian Science Monitor, Reader's Digest, the Kansas City Star, Woman's Day, Family Circle, goes on. And she's been featured in a few of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. She's got a book called Connecting in the Land of Dementia, Creative Activities to Explore Together. If you are an activities director at any of these facilities, you got to get this book.
Yes.
This is going to open your eyes to so much that you can be doing. You're not going to cure anybody, but you'll certainly make them, I think, a little bit easier. Their lives will be a little bit better. Maybe that's what I want to say. Deborah Shouse, thank you for sitting through that long intro. I just wanted to tell that story before I introduced you. Good morning, Deborah.
Good morning, and I love that story. And Larry, your beautiful story has pointed up something so important. how vital it is to know the people, if you're working in a care facility, that you're dealing with, and know what they like and know what they respond to. And this book is also for family caregivers, and they often know what people like, but sometimes they forget. And your example is just priceless. And it's a great way to say that even when we change, we still have the things we care about inside us. And if you look and you explore and you get down on one knee, so a person can really, hear you and see you, just like you intuitively did, then you can often connect. And that creative and imaginative part of ourselves goes on long after the rational brain doesn't work so well.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know anything about this. You obviously know way more than I ever will, but I just, from person to person, it seemed like something. Robin and I had a little experience too. Robin and I play music, and we play colleges, and we play anything. But once in a while, we play nursing homes. So we played a nursing home that was exclusively for dementia folks. And I said to the group, we were going to play the song Hava Nagila. And I said, is anybody here Jewish? And nobody raised their hand. Nobody said they were Jewish. I said, well, we got a great song here for Jewish people. Yeah. So we played Hava Nagila. All of a sudden, this lady stood up. She says, wait a minute, I'm Jewish. All of a sudden,
everybody laughed.
All of a sudden, she remembered when she heard the song. Oh, I know this song, and her eyes lit up. Right?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have brought a gift to people in the music, and that is one thing we can all access, whether you're working in a care facility or at home. That music often speaks to people in such a deep way. There's a wonderful study done in Finland recently that talks about how interweaving singing into your daily life really helps you connect with someone living with dementia, particularly if you know what songs they love and are familiar with. There's a wonderful program called Music and Memory, started by Dan Cohen out of Brooklyn, New York, that ties into what you just gave a story about, Larry and Robin, and that is that when you know a person's favorite songs, like the songs that make you want to get up and dance, or the songs you remember from your various Sunday schools or a first date, and you put those on a device such as an iPod Shuffle, and you let people listen to them for people in the care facility, they come alive. And this has been documented by an amazing movie called Alive Inside that just shows you the impact this can make on people who may be sitting around seemingly, quote, out of it, but are there inside and can connect with the music. So I love what you said about, listening to music. One of the care partners I know often took his wife for a drive. They used to drive in the countryside when they were courting. And they listened to the music they listened to back then. He'd go for a drive, they'd listen to their music, they'd sing along, and it was just a great way of bonding together.
Oh my gosh, that's too sweet, isn't it?
And this isn't just good therapy for the person that has dementia. It is also good for the caregiver or the family members, because sometimes family members are so stressed out that if they feel they have a purpose in life, which is helping the person who has dementia, their anxiety level goes down, which is a good thing.
You are so right, Robin. And it helps the family members in another way as well. And that is that there's a number of studies that say that music helps us connect. We feel social bond with people. It reduces anxiety. And we all need this. And as well as people who are working in a care facility, to feel, as you just said, Robin, that sense of purpose, that sense of connection, that you are making a difference in your everyday life. That's important to all of us.
Another story, if you don't mind me sharing, from that same facility. There was a lady there. Her husband did not have dementia, but she did, and she was difficult. And one day the husband came in, and one of the workers said to him, "Your wife, if you excuse the language, your wife is a pain in the ass." And so he complained about that statement, and that woman was fired from her job for saying that to him. He moved her out of the dementia unit and got a room himself in the facility, even though he didn't need to be there, and decided to just live. He was going to be her caregiver, but under the roof of the facility in the non-locked area. And what he did by doing that is he improved her life so much. I guess at first he thought her best place is there, and then he realized that wasn't a good place. And I think your book is going to help. And I'm not picking on that one lady who made a mistake by saying the wrong thing. But if you can empathize with her just for a second, the lady, I think your book will help somebody like that understand, you know, there's a technique for working with this part of the population that'll make your job so much easier.
Yeah,
that's what I think is how your book is going to help.
Oh, thank you for saying that. You know, we're lucky these days because there are so many wonderful people out there who empathize, who understand, who know how to reach people who are living with dementia. One of the contributors to the book, Teepa Snow, does all kinds of training for family members and people in facilities with, you know, simple things that help you communicate what you did instinctively, Larry, of getting down on one knee, bending down so you can look into a person's eyes, so you can see them, asking open-ended questions. A lot of times people are calling out because they can't communicate or they feel pain that they can't describe. And so, you know, there's a purpose in that communication, and to be able to find it is so healing and wonderful for us.
When you were doing the interviews for your contributors, were they wary of you at first, or did they understand the magnitude of the book that you would be writing?
Well, that's a great question, Robin. I was so lucky because everyone I reached out to was excited about the project. People were doing, you know, very interesting, specific work. I have activities with poetry, music, art, gardening, cooking, technology, fabric. All these people were so generous in their time. And one of the things we were able to do together is take the work that they had created and make it accessible to the home care partner or an activity director. You know, anybody can open the book to any activity and do it. It's a how-to book. And that's what I think is fun, is that you can experiment. So if your joke idea hadn't worked, Larry, you could have, you know, tried something else. And I think that's a really important thing, as, you know, for all of us, is to be open to exploring different ideas to see where you're really going to connect.
Do you know, I often wonder, and maybe this is more of a theological thought, I often wonder if we are simply souls, and not that that's simple, and these bodies that we live in are kind of like cars, and the car breaks down, and the thing that we use to get our thoughts out fails, and so they're in there. Those people who are suffering dementia are in there and just can't get it out. It's just, it doesn't, you know, the thought doesn't make it through their mouth and through their expressive skills that they had when they were younger.
That's where the creativity and imagination come in, and that is very much still there. In fact, they say that sometimes you're more creative when you have dementia because your filters are less blurred and you're more honest. And so there's some wonderful work that's being done with art as one example, where people who have had no interest in art through the Memories in the Making program that the Alzheimer's associations do, with a watercolor painting program for people living with dementia. Beautiful art is being created. And even for somebody who's never done art and maybe can't even move their hand or doesn't really know to pick up the brush, one of my contributors, who's an artist in Canada, Shelley Clammer, says you can lay the person's hand on top of your hand and move the brush so they get the idea, and oftentimes that person will then be painting later and looking at art. I know. I mean, it's like really thrilling work, looking at art is another fun way to connect with people who are living with dementia and give them a chance to have ideas and opinions. There's a great story with there's many partnerships with museums through the Meet Me at the MoMA program and other programs throughout the country where you'll go and you'll have a special docent tour viewing art. And the key to such a tour is to just see a few pieces of art, to be comfortable, to not be distracted, and to ask open-ended questions. So you would say, what does this piece of art remind you of? Or have you ever been in a similar situation? So there's a conversation. There's no right or wrong answer.
Wow. This morning there was a news story about the lady who played, is it Liesl, Robin?
Yes.
Liesl von Trapp in Sound of the Music. The actress's name is Charmian Carr. She just died at the age of 73. She died, according to a statement from the family, from complications from a rare form of dementia. A lot of people don't realize dementia can actually be, Alzheimer's is actually a fatal disease. You don't realize it.
Well, yes, that is true. And I think, I like what you said, Larry, about the soul, the soul part of ourselves. And one of the things, Robin, you were asking about the contributors. One of the things I heard over and over from the contributors were this feeling of how much alike we all are, where we all want to live with meaning, we all want to have a purpose, we want to have relationships, we want to be engaged. That doesn't stop when you're living with dementia. And so to keep going and adapt hobbies and passions so that you can still do them when your physical and mental abilities change. That's really important. And it keeps the fun in your lives.
Isn't it amazing how important fun is? I mean, for everybody. It's just important, isn't it?
It is, yes. I have a quick example of that if you'd like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of my contributors, Mara Batanis, who wrote a book called When Caring Takes Courage, really was determined her grandfather, who was living with dementia, would enjoy the things he loved through the end of his life. So one example she gave was with golf. So when he first had dementia, his friends, carried him around the golf course. He still could play, but when he couldn't physically play, she would drive him around the golf course in the early part of the day, and he could smell the new grass, and he could see the familiar sights, and he really enjoyed that. They set up an indoor putting green in his house so they could putt, and they watched golf tournaments with him.
Oh, wow.
So he got to keep going on something in various stages, and that's what we all want. We all come to a point where maybe we can't do something exactly the same way we could in earlier years. And so that's just one great example of thinking through what is important to this person about this activity and how can I keep it going.
Do you recommend, in your opinion, unless the person that has dementia is violent, that you recommend a person with dementia, instead of putting them in an assisted living facility with a group of other people just the same, that they might stay home with their family and also with an outside caregiver that comes in occasionally for respite?
Well, that is a very interesting question, Robin, and I think every case is different. Some people really need a lot of social activity and don't have family who feels comfortable doing the physical care. And so I think it's really person to person and facility to facility that decision is made. And I think whatever the decision that is right for, you and your family, to, as a caregiver, to really be kind to yourself. I know it's really hard on caregivers either way. At home, it's hard to take care of yourself, give yourself respite, and that is vital. And in a care facility, there's, often a feeling of guilt that, I should be doing this. But you can do, you can be there for your loved person, even if you aren't providing the physical care. So I think it's very individual.
Does the book address the things that might happen in the family of somebody with dementia, especially severe dementia? There was a statement by, oh gosh, what's the pastor's name? Robert
Schuller.
Robert Schuller. I started to say his name. He died, right? He's since passed away. Okay, but he made a statement. Maybe I'm even connecting to the wrong person, but he said something about, oh gosh, almost like giving his approval, like God would give his approval, not like Robert Schuller would know, but
yeah.
But I mean, just giving approval. Like if let's say a spouse has severe dementia, the husband or the wife is now basically a widow or widower.
Yes.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with them having somebody to be a companion that takes the place of that person, even though they still love that person and are taking care of them. Does that make sense? Deborah, do you agree with that?
Well, I don't. I guess I just want to say that I think everything is so individualized. But I'll say for myself, with my mom, I've had I'm like you, actually, Robert, is I worked as an activity director years ago. I worked in long-term care in a real early part of my career. And then I've had the challenge and joy to be with my mom through her dementia and my two in-laws. There can still be very much of a connection to the very end, even though it's a different connection.
Yeah.
It's more, as you said, it's more of a soul connection, and that can be very, very deep. And I did feel very deeply connected to my mom towards the end of her life, and I felt very grateful that I was able to have that connection. And I do think also it's important to have other people in your life to offer you support and also to help you appreciate the person who is living with dementia. Several times when my mom was going through a very repetitive phase where she would tell the same story over and again.
I do that.
My friends...
I do that.
Well,
my
good.
son
Well,
gets
you
on
will
me.
like this. You will like this because my friends, would come and spend some time with me and my mom and say, "Your mom is so interesting," and I go, "They're right. My mom is so interesting, but I forgot because I was not listening to the story and not going, oh, my mom's stories were World War II stories." And I wasn't thinking what courage it took to join the Army as a nurse and go overseas. I was thinking, I've heard that story 20 times.
Yeah, right.
So, but I really think, as part of a spiritual practice, we all want to live in the present. We all want to slow down. Oftentimes, when you get to spend time with someone who's living with dementia, you get to do that. And it's one of the gifts that people report. They really learn from people who are living with dementia. As one of my friends who's living with dementia says, I have to slow down. And it's a gift to be slowed down, I think.
I love that statement. I love it when I have to get my tires changed because it means I can't. It means I'm forced to sit with that old coffee and that TV in the waiting room at the tire store. So I have to slow down for that half hour, however long it takes to put the tires on.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And so these are, and one of the, I think, really fun chapters in the book is about cooking and food preparation together because it's something most of us have to do, and how to incorporate time in the kitchen. One of my friends did something really fun with her husband who's living with dementia. She bought a cookbook from the late 1960s when he was a teenager, and they went through, and he identified recipes his mom might have made. Wow. And then together, they went into the kitchen, and they made Johnny Marzetti, and they made tuna fish casserole, and meatloaf, and, all those old dishes. And then they had family and friends over for different meals, and they talked about any memories the food brought up and what it made them think of. But also an important thing is he helped prepare the meal. So when you're living with dementia, to be able to give back is really important, just like it is for when you're not living with dementia.
Yeah, good point.
So to have Go ahead.
I know. I was saying that was a good point, but I'm trying to wrap it up because of the clock. Deborah, we have enjoyed this conversation more than you realize. I would recommend the book to anybody, either taking care of somebody on a personal level or a professional level. I think you're going to get ideas, and that's going to help you. That's going to help the person with dementia. It's just going to be a great addition to the tools you have at your disposal to help out, and that's what you're trying to do. Deborah Shouse, thank you so much. The website I have is dementiajourney.org. Is that right?
That's right. I have new ideas every week for people, so I hope they'll come and connect with me, and we'll learn together.
Right. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you for being on with us today. We will be right back.
Wonderful.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. A manhunt underway for Ahmad Khan Rahami, a suspect in the weekend explosion in New York that injured 29 and other incidents.
They are now linking all three of the explosions up and down the eastern seaboard. The explosion down in Seaside Park, New Jersey, the explosion in Chelsea and Manhattan on